This week, I'm going to talk about a radio I restored some years ago, an Admiral YG703, manufactured here in the United States of America in Chicago. Isn't that fun? Pre-Japan.
Nice. Chi-town.
So this, I was really proud to buy this.
That is very pretty.
Gorgeous 1942 Philco broadcast receiver.
Yeah, that is a really, really
And the case is really great.
So that's a pretty radio though. That's got...
Yeah, it is. So it had a little card in it here.
You need some light?
Yeah, that's fine. It says, needs filter caps. Now what filter caps are, they're the capacitors that are, it's like a ripple filter basically. They take the AC current and cut one side of it off basically. Yeah, more or less. That's the short answer.
Yeah, your diode. And then the capacitors smooth that out from pulsating DC.
So if you've ever heard an electric electric light that kind of like our power supply, which may even come over the mic so that kind of bang at 60 hertz. That's basically what this radio does when you turn it on right now.
But that is fixable.
Yeah, and matter of fact, we'll probably do a video in a bit where I talk about that. So this is a pretty specimen. I've had it sitting on my shelf at work actually. I'm really proud of this one. I've been looking for a wooden table radio for quite a while that's this complete.
It's really pretty inside that thing. It's in really nice shape. I mean, it's like,
and it does power up, and you can hear crackle. So I think the IF is. I mean, the electronics are basically working. There's so much noise. Yeah. I'm not afraid to fire it up. Nothing in here I can't replace except maybe a tube, and we got a whole box of those. So,
it explodes. And you have to.
The shrapnel's going to go out this way too. Once again, 3 YouTubers killed.
So well, look at the back. You see the tubes glow.
Tubes are glowing.
Nice.
Tubes are pretty. That's the one neat thing about tubes is, you know, regardless of everything else, they are actually really pretty to see run. You know, we spend money now to make LED light bulbs look old, and these actually...
It might have when it came under plate load.
There it goes. So that's the other thing about these, if you've never messed with one of these before, you turn it on and you don't get anything right away.
It takes a bit, it has to warm up. Literally is the thing that warms up to make it run. What's your knob? Oh, there it is.
I think there's possibilities here. So the dial light is out. That does not help the filament voltages. But you'll hear in there, you can hear little noises.
Do you know what frequency it's on or not?
It's set on broadcast, so it should be on broadcast AM.
Is it broadcast in shortwave?
Uh-huh.
That's fun. 1340 should be.
Yeah, I'm roughly. Of course, who knows if the dial's lined up or not.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. But you could realign these things. You could actually make this thing still receive AM and shortwave today. It would still work.
You see the FCC changes something.
Yeah. Warmed up yet?
Some of the tubes are really cold. Makes me wonder if there's actually B+ voltage issues.
So the other thing, there's not a piece missing back here. These were, I mean, they came like this.
Yeah, especially in the 1930s and 40s, they came without a back.
So now when you buy something, they button it all up and they don't want you to see the insides, and you're not supposed to touch them. But back then, you had to work on this kind of stuff, so they made it very accessible.
Oh yeah. Well, and tubes had a finite life because they would burn out and just run up to death eventually.
What is that? Kind of leads into this. So what we've got here, I bought this many years ago. This is a 1965 Admiral YG703 AM table receiver. It's a budget radio.
Okay.
Budget radio, eh?
And the other day, and this I think is really cool, I went out of my way
Oh, you got the photo fax.
To buy Sam's Photo Fact folder that contains this chassis in it. It's from July 1964, I believe.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, and it has several different
Yeah.
things.
Oh, yeah. And what this is it's something that like TV and radio repair shops will subscribe to, and it literally contains all the literature in a folder and schematics for every model it lists on the front.
As I recall, because I saw some of these like before I got out of that kind of world, and they had like basically little service manuals. They weren't like necessarily the manufacturer service manuals, but they were on some occasion anyway. They were actually better.
Yeah, most places would swear by them trying to find the one for the radio on the
Sam's
table.
Photo Fax. Yeah, Sam's Photo Fax were a big thing at the time. They had that on so many things too.
Oh yeah, about anything manufactured from the 1930s on. There it is.
So is that tube type? Or
It is.
It is tube type. Wow.
Here is the photo fact on it.
Okay.
I'll tell you more. It is a 4-tube radio versus a 5, which means it's very cheap. It does not have a second IF amplifier.
No, just one.
So this thing isn't the greatest receiver that ever lived. Now,
For the day though, it's kind of surprising because transistors were out.
transistors were out. That's why I think this is just a super budget model. There were about 3 different models made with this. The model covered there is not exactly this model, but it's the exact same chassis. So we were speaking about filter caps. I want to get in the back of this. If you'll hold the camera for me.
Certainly.
I'm going to show you guys the work I've done on it, and we'll compare it to the folder, and you'll see the changes I've made.
I do know a few things you could do to this with modern electronics
Yeah.
to actually clean up some bits and pieces that would be handy. The big one is
You're just not afraid of breaking anything there, are you?
Not this one.
it's a budget radio.
I think I paid $3 for it.
$3 whole bucks.
Yeah, I bought it at our local ham fest from a guy. He was your typical ham fest vendor. He goes, yeah, it plays, and he goes, well, it came up with a hum equally as bad as the Philco we just had on the table. All right, and it has a safety. This is from the 60s, so it already has a safety plug. See, you remove it from the back here.
You can't. Yeah,
Can't get in it.
Yeah, take it off, yeah.
Now it's kind of hard. We won't
I
be
love
like
the
behind us.
antenna
don't
on
we?
the back
Yeah.
of this thing.
Yeah.
That is wild.
So you'll see it has. Borrow the camera from you.
Certainly.
So you've put in some new caps in that.
I have. Nathan's already spotted my work. So the fella at the Hamfest, he's like hitting the IF slugs and stuff, and it did receive when I bought it. But if you look out here on the photo fact, we'll lay it down the light here. There's capacitor C1 here, okay? That was a multi-part electrolytic capacitor. It's the only electrolytic in the thing.
So that's
And
that's
that,
here.
yes, it's here, and I think it's up here too. It had another leg. It had 3 different capacitance values.
Yeah, they're probably all
and
tied
a
together.
shared ground.
Yeah.
And the thing was bad. So what I did is I looked up the values. I didn't have the photo fact at the time. I just read it off the side of the capacitor. And this stood up pretty tall in the radio. If you're looking down, this is the same board, okay? And you see right here, I put 3 different electrolytics in it that match the values in place of that. Okay?
They're probably massively smaller now.
And very much, yeah. And this is kind of interesting because it does have a printed circuit board. And it's a pretty simple schematic, but it's really cool because I got this in case I want to tinker with it or make sure it's aligned well. And I kind of want to learn, but it actually shows every single value, and this is something you probably don't see today. Every value of every component in this thing and its original part number and some optional ones are listed on the back.
The optional, those are-
Including like the plastic knobs at the time from Admiral, you know, their part numbers. So, and has instructions on how to align it.
I worked as a bench tech for 5 years, and we had we worked a lot on RCA stuff. So we had RCA projection televisions, and they had the alignment procedure, and it was long.
Yeah.
And took hours.
Sure. Now, we had the oscilloscopes out earlier, and something about Sam's photo facts that's interesting. I noticed this on another YouTube
It
channel.
gives you waveforms, yeah.
Is it gives you, and let me get this on our other camera here. it gives you at points in the circuit the kind of waveforms you should see on your oscilloscope if you put the probe on it.
Yeah.
All throughout.
Yeah.
And this is for a television, a Zenith or something, so yeah. So
yeah.
And that's pretty common in television. That's the only way to troubleshoot some pieces of that. So
yeah, and it's, well, that's why I like to. You know, I have three oscilloscopes right now, plus these two.
Sure. It's amazing how good a shape these are in for 1965 or 4. So.
Well, yeah.
But
Window things, yeah. Those
so this thing was made before man landed on the moon.
Yeah, it looks about like that era.
It does. There were a lot better looking radios at this time, but you know, much like any other ham test, I saw this and I'm like, yeah, I bet I can make that go. This is the second radio I've recapped. I once recapped a 1956 Bulova, can't say that right, clock radio. But this thing now, this guy works pretty good with just that one fix. Only thing I don't like is the rectifier tube runs really warm. I don't know if that's expected or not. What do you think?
Here's the neat thing. You can take it out and put in a diode.
I considered that, and I may try it because it runs so hot.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's normal or not. It made me concerned that I'd put the wrong capacitance values in, but I don't think I did.
But, well, even if they're, it's amazing how that thing sets up too. It switches on and off the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a hot chassis.
Power switches.
Oh, wow.
It's a hot chassis.
No, that, and that's on
That's
several levels.
hilarious. Safety second.
We're inside of a big metal building, which is not conducive to AM radio reception.
Yeah.
But I rest assure you it works. It has always still had a bit of a hum in it. I can't, but it sounds more like an audio ring. Because when this thing receives, it receives hot and clear. But we'll about have to go outdoors to prove that. But
My truck has an inverter in it.
yeah, you know, my car does too.
That's pretty cool.
So we'll bring you a clip here in a minute of this thing working. But this is one of my early forays. I would like to work into repairing old televisions and getting into where, you know, we throw an old dirty tube type television. Well, I mean tube type vacuum tubes in the circuits too.
Yeah.
Up here on this table and make it go. So when it doesn't.
That's weird the way they're doing that. Okay, so they're taking the filament from that.
Cheap and weird is probably two good answers for this
They
video.
put all the filaments in series with a resistor from hot to ground.
To bring them, is that just the
120
voltage?
to ground,
Yeah.
yeah. So they don't turn, like, there's no 6 volt, 6.3 volt transformer that you
No, there's no
have.
transformers at all in
so
this.
it's running all of it through
It
there.
is, yeah. So it's comes in, it goes through the heater, through that heater.
So yeah,
through that heater.
so it has a series heater filaments, right?
Yeah.
They're in series, and that's to drag the voltage down further. The resistor, I assume, right?
Yeah, it just can't keep it like it 120 on one side, 88 on the other, 34 on the next.
Because the tube values
gives you the voltage levels right there.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of fun to.
That's a well. I mean, I guess that's safe.
Yeah. Like you're saying, I was looking.
So like here, it comes in, comes in. It actually switches ground, which is terrifying.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, that wouldn't pass.
Not today. Yeah.
But it goes through heater, through the next heater, through resistor, through the next heater, through the next heater. It says V1, so it's got V. This is I don't know what to call it, but it's V1, V2, V3. I guess it's V4.
Shorthand for valve, they would call it. in some
Yeah,
cases,
and even though we call them tubes here, they're still labeled as V. But it's just it's a term.
I was trying to look at all the voltages because the first two numbers on a tube are the voltage. So it's 12, 12, 50. That's probably why they use a 50 volt there, isn't it, to drag it down? That should be the voltage at the filament pin.
120 on that one right there, 120.
Okay, yeah. I see. I wonder. It's a 50 volt tube, so it's meant to handle that. It's probably got a resistor somewhere in there. See, I'm just now learning all this. So
that's a fun tube. I'm not sure what that tube does. Well, it's the audio output.
yeah, it does. It should show what they are.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that's the audio. There's the speaker,
Output,
transformer. It's
the
really
AF
funny.
amp is the 112 AV6, and there's a converter. Yeah. that
Yeah,
makes
the
sense.
12AU6 and the 12AV6 are they're not that unusual. They're pretty common.
Sure.
35W4. That probably is
The
just really
35W4 is pretty common too in cheap radios for
But
rectifier.
It's got like this weird. I've never seen a layout quite as.
Right. I thought this was an oddball radio. It's one of the reasons I thought it was interesting because it's simple, but it's like the engineering's odd.
Well, yeah. So the problem is you can't replace that with a diode because it literally runs it. Well, you could put a resistor and then a diode. You could put a diode.
Yeah,
from
this
here to there.
it's not as straightforward as the typical All-American 5 circuit is.
No.
Of course, it's on the borderline because it's odd because it really is a tube radio in the transistor era.
Sam's photofax is running
Yeah,
apples.
they were.
No idea.
I always thought that was cool. Yeah, all of them I've ever seen say that.
So does this predate Underwriter's Laboratory?
No, actually, I think it's marked.
Are you sure about that?
Somewhere
I don't
thought
see
it
a
was.
UL.
Yeah.
The UL shouldn't have passed.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, they should have. Like, if they would have switched the hot lead.
There it is,
I could
right
see
there.
that.
Wow. They would put that stamp
So-
on anything.
Maybe back then, especially.
Well,
I put it on hot, 120 volt. It's creepy. What's odd?
well, it's also not a polarized plug.
Not
No,
no,
it is not.
What's interesting about this is you'll hear from radio repair guys who've done this. They say the most common thing that fails in a tube radio is not the tubes, it's the power cord. I've been very impressed. I've inspected this closely. This has the original Admiral power plug on it.
Oh, wow.
And it's so clean. I try to keep it. I keep this one in the house. I put up because but yeah, it has the actual Admiral marked power cord on it, and it's still healthy.
wild.
So no cracks at all.
Well, and the neat thing is it actually shows the disconnect here.
Yes.
For that plug.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess I sort of get the idea why they didn't really care where they put the switch because it's not a polarized plug, so it didn't really matter. It was one of those you plug it in wrong, you have a hot chassis whether you put the switch here or there.
And this chassis, I mean, this board snaps in. It's pretty hard to actually get at the bottom of it unless you take it out of the radio entirely.
Well, and they've isolated everything here from the user, so
Yep.
I mean it's not.
So yeah,
What
it's
I'd
a neat
call
radio.
Safe by today's standards, but it's kind of neat the way they made that work and made it function where they just tied them all together. And
Okay, when we last saw this Admiral YG703 in the video, it was kind of just making a humming sound, and we couldn't get it to receive anything. Well, I got it home and I found a couple problems, so we'll go over what I found and how it was fixed. Okay, so when I pulled the back off of this and got to looking around, this green wire that connects to the cardboard back to this loop antenna for the AM had gotten caught over the top of the converter tube. Okay, just like that. So when I put it on and we'd pulled it off originally, I think it actually is probably when we pulled it off for the video, it had rocked the tube slightly this direction, okay, which caused the pins underneath to disconnect on the right side, it looks like. So pins are in good shape, could stand to be cleaned probably, but yeah, the thing just wouldn't work, so I got that lined up, but then when I put it together I popped this solder joint off the tuner slug. So once we did that, everything seemed to be in good shape. We'll give it a try here.
About 15 minutes, and then where we were is about an hour and 15 minutes.
So, it's got good output.
76,000 in a month. By the end of the year, it's probably going to be well over 1 million illegal aliens coming across the border.
Political talking
and these
head
are the ones I
stuff.
believe that we're making contact with. I mean, we don't know.
Well, that's what we might as well get. It's got a pretty sensitive tuners. You got to be right. You can pass over stations in a hurry. Let's see. Not a lot of AM stations in our immediate area.
Optum, there's 10 people that jumped out, I think.
And how is one officer or two officers going to catch them all? They can't.
Can't, and it's officers.
This is the Bloomington station. Kind of harder to hear at 1370.
Now, for the first time, a government acknowledged instantly responding to an attempted attack with an airstrike.
Mexico. So the illegals.
So anyway, you get the idea. It works pretty well with the tube seated properly and the antenna attached right. So like I'd said in the video, these are the filter caps we replaced. Or I replaced probably about 10 years ago. I probably had this since about 2005 or 6. 06 is what I'm thinking. And look at the photo fact here. You can see kind of a juxtaposition of the top of the board versus actually seeing the board. You can see where I placed the one tall C1 multiple part electrolytic capacitor that used to be on it, and it was easily the tallest thing in the radio at the time. It probably stood up about to there. I just laid these down. If I did this again, I would probably stand these on end so that they look nicer where I could. So of course some leads may not have allowed that. Anyway, yeah, it was a simple radio restore, and it was, I believe, the second one I got working. When I got this, it didn't work at all. It just had a loud hum. So due to those filter, I mean, you could receive, but it was pretty poor. So yeah, that's a Admiral YG703 with the 4A4A chassis in it. So this is a different model listed here. The only real difference in this unit and the one I have is the style of the knobs on the front. So are not the same. As you can see there, oh, upside down, kind of printed differently. So that one has its dial indicator around the outside. So yeah. So that's 3 old tech dudes for this week. I'm Timmy.
I'm Justin.
I'm Nathan.
We'll see you next week. Yeah! Intro here.
Alrighty then.